You're going from a system that is now not going to work anymore. And if you've studied what I have said in these last months, I gave a channeling recently called The End of History. It's a metaphor that means the end of the way things used to be. A rebirth of the way things can be. And what is changing there is human nature. What is it a human will do intuitively? Look at what they've always done. They separate. Have you ever looked at Europe and wondered how so many countries can be so close together and yet they have different languages and different cultures? You just assume that's the way it works. Do you ever wonder how it got that way? How can so many countries have such unique languages, have such unique cultures in such a small area? Let me tell you how it happened. It's called human nature. When one doesn't like the other and they wall themselves off and call themselves special. And through hundreds of years they develop language which changes their own culture, and they do not unify with the others. In fact, they war with them. They conquer them. And we've talked about it before. That's what humans do. They separate. They conquer. They pull it apart. They don't put it together. Even that which is the most sacred thing to you, even that which the masters of the earth have started and the information they gave you, you put into that which you call organized spirituality. You put it in boxes, and when one person has another idea, you create another box. You separate, don't you? And pretty soon you have hundreds and hundreds of boxes representing the belief and the teachings of one master. Now you've succeeded in separating it, pulling it apart, pointing fingers at the other box and making them wrong. That's what humans do. Well, I will tell you that that is changing. I gave you some information before. I'll mention it again. The last thing you'd ever expect to happen is for big money to change on this planet, and it just did. Creating your recession, a new way of banking. It's beginning to create a system of integrity where the world can work together financially. That is the step you're looking at, and you're not realizing it. We told you there'll come a time on the planet where there'll only be 5 currencies because the continents decided to put it together. And you know who was the model? The United States. What an experiment you had. Could you take different states governed separately and not have any visible borders and one currency? It worked. Worked for over 100 years. Against all odds, it worked. Oh, you almost stepped on it. You almost separated it, didn't you? And if it had not been for certain men of enlightenment that saw that separation would kill it, you wouldn't have what you have today. But they kept it unified. And it was noticed 50 years ago by those who started what you now know is the European Union. What if we took all of the countries in Europe who have warred with each other since the millennium, for millennia, and we unify them, take away the borders, and give them one currency? They laughed at them. Can you imagine? 50 years ago, after your last war. And today you're seeing it. And what has happened there, dear citizen of the United States, is now they have the most powerful country set financially on earth. Their monetary system is more valuable than yours. Where am I going with this? It is something you can look at, which is going to be an attribute, a postulate, an axiom of this, the new earth. And here it is. Separatism kills. Unity is the survival of humanity. You will start putting things together and not taking them apart. And the more you put them together and the more you unify, the more you realize that the goal is starting to come together. What has the European Union created? I'll tell you, not the euro. What has it really created? A group of countries that will never go to war with each other. They can't. They trade with each other. Think about it. And that's what we're talking about. Unification in all ways. Don't be surprised if those boxes of organized spirituality start to unify. Because there's more strength if they do. They'll reach more people if they do. You're going to start seeing this. And the one that is going to shock you and surprise you, eventually, your children may see it. I should not even mention it. The end of a system in politics that you have now, where you start to understand it does not suit you to have opposition parties. Instead, what it suits you is to have those who run for office, each one having a message. And you go to the polls because you like their message. And when they get to Congress, they're not split. They're unified. They don't have one side against the other constantly, producing the things that you see today in America. Instead, there is no party affiliation. They have ideas that are unique and beautiful, and that's why they sit in the chairs as elected officials. And they work the puzzle of the lawmakers they are in the United States in a new way that is unified and sets still another standard for the earth to look at and copy. Is it possible? Will it work? My partner is saying to me, well, I'm not going to be around. Oh, yes, you will. Not in the body you have. You wouldn't miss it. Kryon, will my children see that? Their children will. And you know why? Because it's becoming the axiom of the way things work. Human nature will shift. First thing you're going to look at as the way to solve problems is unification. I didn't say compromise, did I? I said unification. There's a difference. Compromise is where you have those which are against one another coming together. They're still against one another. I'm talking about unity. It'll become an axiom. And it'll look as old to you. Someday the two-party system will look as old to you as today when you watch dictators on the earth strutting their stuff. And you laugh and you say, well, they're not going to last long. Or did you notice that? They're going away. Or did you notice that? Some of you are seniors in the room. You remember a time in certain parts of the earth when every single country had a dictator. South America, there's only one left, and not for long. What are they doing there? I will tell you. There's an idea there. A Brazilian has it. Let me tell you what his idea is. He said, what if we took all of the countries of South America and took the borders away and gave us one currency? Sound familiar? That's going to be one of the 5 currencies. Unification is going to create strength and peace on this planet. And in the process, that elephant under the table, which keeps it from happening, which you call terrorism, which you call that problem in the Middle East, that hatred, is going to take a twist that nobody can foretell. I've talked about it. Were you shocked when the Soviet Union fell over? What did your parents tell you about that? Wasn't that the talk of 50 years? Wasn't that the crux of why the laws were passed and the armaments were put together? Isn't that why the Pentagon was so big? And it all fell over overnight. Did anybody expect that? It'll be just as shocking. A problem that today is before you without solution will become history. And unity can begin. Do you like the message? Well, human beings, you're part of the answer and the solution, and you sit here as the ancestors who saw it coming. Wherever you walk on this planet, it changes the magnetic grid. It changes that which is crystalline. Your job is to put light here. Everything you do for yourself changes that which is the quotient of the planet. You can't stop. You can't sit around and watch for this. The weather shift is because of you. The good doctor and all of his numbers on the screen. Right on schedule. And the numbers on the screen, I'll tell you what they represent. They represent a healed continent that won't have AIDS anymore. And a healed continent that has no more disease will not have dictators that take advantage of a sick population. A healed continent which has never had the resources of it really understood will be one of the most powerful economies on the planet. It will be called Africa, and it's going to beat China. And you know why? Because Africa has no history. They'll start fresh in a new energy, if that means anything to you, while China still struggles with the old guard. Even today, things they will not release, things that they cannot unify. It's not going to work. Unity is survival. And that's what's going to happen on the planet. As I see it with the potentials that are before me, that continue to be before me, that there's proof of before me all around, I sit before Lemurians, Sumerians. I sit before those who have lived before. I sit before shamanic energy. You expected it, you knew it was coming, and here you are to change it. Dear human being, take the things of today into yourself and be one of those who understands that you can heal yourself through the information which is in DNA. Start changing that. You know what else is written in DNA? I'll tell you, your consciousness. You know what else is written in DNA? Hatred. Hatred that your parents gave you for this or that or whatever. You know what else is information in your DNA? Bad habits. How'd you like to write them all out? Change them all. And if you do, and if you want to, and you can in this new energy, that is what we have defined is ascension status. Moving from one kind of human nature, one kind of life to another while staying in the same body. And the masters of earth all talked about it. And here you are, the potential before you. 2011 may be a challenging year because of the change before you, because of the Gaia that is responding to you. You can be in the right place at the right time, dear light worker, because you've got that which is a multidimensional GPS. It's called intuition. Follow it. And it'll put you where you belong. It'll put love in your life if that's what you want. It'll give you health if that's what you want. All of these things controllable by that which you cannot see and don't expect. Welcome to quantum living.